Hello, welcome. Hold on, let me share screen. So it's just me right now. If anybody wants to come up and the discussion over what we're going to be talking about, you're more than welcome to. I'm pretty much just going to skim through this. Um, hey Donna, hey Dozer. Let's see if my internet is cooperating enough for this. Um, so, um, what's that do? What does that do? What does star do? I don't know, but I started it. Whatever that does. All right, so wonders. Brendan did call this morning. He's doing really good. Some positive visual. He's excited about his visit with Pete, and he's looking forward to when the culinary kitchen opens up for visits. Although he's not sure when he'll be able to have that food during a visit. Am I coming in clear? Because it keeps going in and out on, I think it's the Wi-Fi. But, like, am I coming in clear or am I breaking in and out? We may not be able to do this if the Wi-Fi keeps acting up like this. You can hear me clearly? Okay. Thank you, Facebook user. Let's see. All right, so let me see if I can. So last time we ended off on page 165. So giving a brief recap, basically going over the Dr. Richard Leo, who studies interrogations. He is pretty much like the expert in field interrogations, police interrogations. He sat through many interrogations, and all sorts of stuff. Like he, lack of a better word, he knows his shit. So, did I spell that wrong? I might have spelled that wrong. So that's basically what we're gonna be going over. Keeps going, everybody could hear. It looks like it. Okay. Broke up. All right. Well, let's see how it is interviewing Dr. Richard Leo in the last interview or an interrogation. Also, okay, so let's back up a bit before I continue. Last live that we did, this interrogation was versus an interview. And I believe it had to do with the Miranda. Can you guys hear me now? Am I better? I may not be able to have this on the screen. I may not be able to show that. It's the Wi-Fi. I can't do it too much, you know? Yeah. Well, shoot. I'm just gonna have to get better Wi-Fi. 'Cause I can't do anything anymore, it seems like. Well, that's a bummer. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and read it out to you guys. Um, readcasefiles.com. Yeah, it's because I took the screen off. I can't do the share screen option because it won't let my internet just won't let me do it, and that really sucks. Or maybe I should just postpone this because I don't know how to do this without. Hey, Under Your Scars. Wing it. Oh, Under Your Scars, Brendan told me he did get your cards. So, he did receive them. Anyway, so Dr. Richard Leo, he basically said what the difference is between um what a interview is versus an interrogation. And he basically said that an interrogation has like to fit certain criteria. One of them is Miranda warning, and the second one is that you're basically being detained, um, as in official police capacity, back of a car, police station, what have you. And if you're not being if it's not considered an interrogation, then you don't have to read off the Miranda warning, which is how Wiegert and Fassbender were able to not read Brendan the Miranda warning when he was being interviewed at school, because that, under their guidelines, was not considered an interrogation, it was considered, um, an interview. And while you have the same rights in an interview. You don't have to talk. You don't have to answer any questions. It's more like a formal or informal discussion, right? But anything that you say can be used against you. So whether or not it's an interrogation and or an interview, it can still be used against you. It's just a matter of what is this considered. Now, they did that because they basically tried to trick Brendan into talking to them. Um, it wasn't until he was back at the police station on March 1st that they then read him his Miranda rights, which I feel like that's why they did it interview style and not interrogation style at the school, was because if Brendan caught on to what his Miranda rights were, then he may not have talked. But I think they realized that he wasn't gonna catch on to what his Miranda rights were. So that's why, um, they were like, I think, yeah. So he's asking, so Drizzen is asking, in your opinion, was the question at the police on March 1st an interview or an interrogation? And Richard Leo says it's an interrogation. I believe he said, if I scroll up here, um, let's see. He asked him if he felt like the one at the school was interrogation or an interview. And I believe, if I can find it, up here, blah blah blah. Uh, it's way up here, but I believe he said yes. I believe even the one at the school asked were pretty much the same. The only difference is that he wasn't being detained in a police station. So, if I remember correctly, it's way up there, but um now, so Drizzen asks why. Why do you consider this an interrogation? And so his answer is the same reasons I've offered before. They were using interrogation techniques. They were seeking to elicit incriminating statements. That's why the one done at the school was considered uh, in his professional opinion was considered an interrogation because they're basically trying to get statements out of you to arrest you. They want the information, um, that's gonna incriminate you. That's what they wanted out of Brendan. Um, so question, does the fact that the interrogation took place in the officers called a soft room change your opinion on whether it was an interrogation or an interview? And his answer is no, it doesn't change my opinion. What's important is the techniques that are used and how the questioning was being conducted, whether it's in a soft room or a not soft room. So, uh, question, whether the suspect is sitting on a or in a hardback chair doesn't matter to you. And he says correct. So a soft room is a room that's set up to make you more comfortable, to make you feel more comfortable. That's why you see Brendan on the couch. Generally speaking, a hard room is where you see the table in that little uncomfortable chair in a very small cramped room. They're basically trying to um intimidate you more in that room. And a soft room is about your comfort, your leisure. Here's this nice comfy sofa. Can I get you something to drink? Can I get you something to eat? You're not here because you're in trouble vibes. You know what I'm saying? That's the difference between a soft room and a hard room. So clearly they were sending the signals to Brendan that you're in trouble here. We want you to say troubling things, but you don't have anything to worry about, Brendan. You don't need a lawyer. You know what I mean? Those kind of vibes. You don't need your parents. You don't need a lawyer. They did that intentional. They knew how to get to Brendan and get the information that they wanted. Is that my cat? Yes, it is. Okay. My cat just walked by my legs. Um, I thought it was the dog. So I was like, that doesn't feel like the dog. Anyway, um, so that's why got StreamYard. Hey, Donna. But that's why they did it the way they did. They knew exactly what they were doing and the techniques that they could use on Brendan to get what they wanted out of him. If and I'm just gonna say this, if they treated him like they thought of him as like if they find out like this guy did it and they treated him like a typical adult, um, he would have Brendan probably would have shut down, right? He probably would have shut down. And that's why they did it the way they did it, because they knew that if they studied Brendan well enough to know that if they threw him in a hard, quote unquote, hard room and treated him like they would, you know, somebody that you see on the TV and they're like slam on the desk and they're like, "We know you did it, blah 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 blah." He probably would have shut down. So, they did it specifically because they knew how to get what they wanted out of him. Um, now and so the question, okay, now I want you to focus on, if you will, page 4, clip 19. We're gonna play a series of clips, 4, clip 19, then clips, so we don't have that. Um, but before I get there, on March 1st, Detective Wiegert and Fassbender used one tactic over and over again. You call it in your report a superior knowledge ploy. Do you recall that? And he says yes. And so he asks him, "What is that technique?" And he responds, "Well, this is a technique of confronting a suspect either with evidence that irrefutably establishes his guilt, or," and then there's interference noise coming from the "thought that I did that," right? Or, right, so it was like a gap in words, but "thought that I did that," or pretending to have superior knowledge, or knowledge, knowing everything. In other words, knowing that the suspect did this because you know everything. So this is kind of an evidence play. When I referred earlier in confronting a suspect with real or alleged evidence to convince them they're caught, and it's futile to continue denying. So Stevenson asks, so would it be fair to say that in of itself the superior knowledge ploy may not be psychologically coercive? And he said correct. But if used over and over again throughout the interview, it might become psychologically, and he says correct, especially in combination with other techniques. It could have a coercive effect, yes. So the question again, I'm hoping that we'll be able to play. Oh, okay. So this is tell me the truth. We already know. Just tell us. It's okay. Um, Gosh, I wish I had this clip right off the hand, but let me see. I don't think I can play it from because my internet's really sucky right now. But it's basically the clip where here, let me where Weeder, is like, we already know, just tell us what happened. We already know. Um the whole entire interrogation, by the way, is I have parts of it on here. Hi, Emily. And I have Jinx Thanks has the whole incomplete version of it on her channel. So, hey, Rhonda. Let's see. I thought I had something on here. I don't think so, though. But yeah. And then clip 2 that they show is this is what they're saying to Brendan is, why did he have you come over there? Did he need help with something? Remember, we already know, but we need to hear it from you. Why did he have you come up there? He needed help, didn't he? What did he need help with? Go ahead and tell us. And then clip 23, he asks him, why was he peed off at her? And then Brendan says, I don't know. And then they say, I think he probably told you, so just be honest, we already know. And then clip 24 is, what else did he do to her? We already know, be honest. We got enough here to, and probably it's intelligible. So know some things that happened to her, so tell us the truth. What else did he do to her?" Then clip 25 is, "How did you know that?" Um, and then a bunch of stuff that the lady couldn't pick up from the thing. So, "Dr. Leo, would you look at the tape for this one?" And then he plays it again. "Be honest with us, we already know. We're gonna help you through this, all right?" And then clip number 26 is, "It's okay, Brendan, we already know." What happens next? "Remember, we already know. We wanna hear it from you. It's okay. It's not your fault. What happens next?" And, then he plays another clip that says, "Come on, be honest. We went back in that room." So now Drizzen asks, "I know you're having difficulty hearing that, but, we'll give you the exhibit to the extent you need to fill in what you're unable to hear." By now, Dr. Leo, this is the example of a repeated example of obstinate ploy or super knowledge ploy. And he says, yes, they repeatedly tell him that they know and convey superior knowledge or knowledge of everything that occurred. And if in fact they don't know, then this would be a false evidence ploy, correct? And he says, correct. So we all know that the story that Brendan gave. Hey, Auntie. Hey, Emily. Hey, Mystic Jinx. Mystic Jinx, you have a wrench, right? Can you drop you the link for the interrogation of Brendan's March 1st interview? So if people want to go watch it, they can. Please and thank you. That's from your channel. That's from your channel, Jinx. Um, but anyway, so we already know that actives don't really know what's going on. They don't really have an idea. They have a story in their head that they want Brendan to tell them, and they're taking the evidence and trying to mash it into place to make it work. But overall, they don't know what happened to Teresa. So for them to say, we know what happened. We just need you to tell us. They don't really know. So that's why it counts as false evidence ploy, because they don't really have evidence, especially on Brendan. It's a well-known fact. There's zero evidence showing Brendan was involved in any crime. So the fact that they are saying, "Oh, we have all this evidence showing that we know what happened, Brendan, and we just need you to tell us." Thank you, Jinx. Just shows that um it's false evidence. They don't have anything. They have absolutely zero evidence showing that Brendan committed any crime. And so the link that Jinx just dropped in the chat, that is the full interrogation video she got from them. It's everything. There was a lot of stuff that you didn't even see in the documentary. It's all right there that she was able to obtain. So if you guys want to check it out, and I tell people this all the time. Like people tell me, I can't watch it, it's too sad, it's too heartbreaking. It's very full 5-hour video, yeah. It's very heartbreaking. I'm not gonna lie to you. There are times in it where you just feel like screaming at the screen and, like, I don't know. But, like, I also tell people, like, to me, I need to watch it to understand what happened. Um, and if you want to try to understand the best you can, it is, something to consider looking at. So, there it is. What does starring it do? Does it just say, "I like that comment, so I starred it"? I don't know what starring does in StreamYard. I can't pin it. Oh, well. But like I said, if anybody wants to come up here, it is an open panel. Um I can't show the transcript on my screen because my internet sucks. I need to get better internet, but I am reading from the post-conviction transcript, and I'm kinda, And we also have it if you guys go to Stephen Avery casefiles.org, I believe it is, you can see that they have, and fileplay.site also they have it there. So anyway. So question from Steve Dresden, is there anything in the literature that discusses the use of false evidence ploys with teenage suspects? And Dr. Richard Leo says yes. And what can you tell me about those findings, what those findings are? And then the answer is, well, the false evidence ploys are often involved in false confessions. They're considered a risk factor for false confessions. They're also considered particularly influential on individuals who have low IQs or who are juveniles, who they may more gullible or easily led or manipulated into confessing as a result of them. Well, that's just Brendan right there, right? Question. Now, you recall I asked you to watch clip 25 and 26 to remember that. He says yes. Okay, during that clip, investigators reach out and pats Brendan on the knee. Blech. Did you see that? Yes, we all saw that, didn't we? That famous where he reaches forward and he pats him on the knee, and yeah. That part makes me feel sick inside because I'm like, "Don't touch me. Do not touch me. Do not touch him. Do not touch anybody. There should be no touching." But anyway, um, so he says yes. Okay, are police trained to do this? That's a good question. And the answer is yes. Ew. And what is the significance of that? Sometimes they use kinds of body gestures to disarm a suspect to communicate that they are the friend, suspect, or ally to get closer to them physically. Ugh. And it's believed to help in getting someone to confess. I believe he said to him when he was patting him on the knee that he had a kid just like him. You know, I have a son around your age too. So you think of me as a father figure. I think that's what um they were basically getting around to with that. If I remember correctly. It's all there. But that was the part that I saw that made me want to rage. Uh, Leo, I want to talk about the time minimalizing what you spoke about earlier. And he said, okay. I'd like to focus on, if you will, Exhibit 315, page 5, clip 31. And then they start to get that. He brings you. Okay, so this is the clip, and he says, he brings you back there and he shows you her. What do you do? Honestly, I believe you were, and this is a lot. This is chopped up because it's very hard for the lady to hear what he's saying on the tape. But we know what happened. Be truthful. We know what happened. It's okay. What did you do? And then Brendan said, I didn't do nothing. And then he says, Brendan, come on. What did you do? What did Steven make you do? It's not your fault he makes you do it. And then Drizzen's question is, Mr. Fassbender on that clip says to Brendan, what does Steven make you do? And then, correct. Is that an example of minimalizing? And he says, yeah, it's blaming. It's blaming this on somebody else, implying that Steven's at fault. As the next sentence suggests as well, that he himself is not at fault. And so his culpability is being minimalized here if he admits to being involved as they're trying to get him to admit to. Question, is there a connection between minimalizing and pragmatic implication? Ooh, that's a big word. Yes, pragmatic implication again, implying the meaning of something rather than explicitly stating it. Minimalization is a way to imply suggestions or promises of leniency essentially through what we call pragmatic implication. Question. So the combination of suggesting that Stephen made him do it and your it's not your fault. Why is that example of minimalization. Because again, he's trying to minimize. He's suggesting that Mr. Brendan's they're not allowed to he says, I'm sorry, Mr. Dassey's. I guess I forget if they're not allowed to call him Mr. Brendan. Anyway, Mr. Dassey's culpability will be minimalized or eliminated if he admits to this. He's not admitting to something that he's at fault for. He's not responsible for something he's not at fault for. Therefore, he has no criminal liability for something he's not responsible for, not at fault for. Okay. So the question is, I want to focus, if you will, on page 3, Exhibit 315, clip 17, followed by page 4, clip 8. So, all right. So here's what the clips honestly here, Brendan, is the thing that's going to help you no matter what you did. We can work through that, okay? We can't make you any promises, but we will stand behind you no matter what you did, okay? Because you're being the good guy here. You're the one who's saying, you know what? Maybe I made some mistakes, but here's what I did. The other guy involved in this doesn't want to help himself. All he wants to do is blame everybody else, okay? And by you talking with us, it's helping you, okay? Because the honest person is the one that's going to get a better deal out of everything. You know how that works? You know, honesty is the only thing that will set you free, right? All right, I'm taking a sip of some coffee. Um, And we know, like Tom said, we know when we review these tapes, we know there's some things you left out. And we know there's some things that maybe you weren't quite correct that you told us, okay? We've been investigating this a long time. A long time, by the way. Let's see. October, November, December, January, February, March. 5 months. Okay. Um We've been investigating this a long time. We pretty much know everything. Oh, do you? That's why we're talking to you again today. We really need you to be honest this time with everything, okay? If, in fact, you did some things, which we believe some things may have happened that you didn't want to tell us about, it's okay. As long as you can, as long as you be honest with us, it's okay. If you lie about it, that's going to be problems. All right. Clip 18. Just take it through honestly now. Come on, Brendan, be honest. We already know what happened, okay? We don't get honesty here. I'm your friend right now. Or I got to believe in you. If you don't believe if you believe can't go to bat for you, tell us what happened. And then another one says, your mom said you'd be honest with us. And she's behind you 100% no matter what happens here. That's what she said because she thinks you know more too. We're in your corner. We already know what happened. Now tell us exactly. Don't lie. By the way, if I was in an interrogation room and if I was in an interrogation room and the cops were like, just tell us what happened. We already know what happened. We just need you to say it. I would turn it around on them and say, well, then you know that's clearly what happened. Because I would just be like, well, if you already know what happened, then you can tell me what happened, right? Because I don't know what happened. But anyway, I'm an adult though, and that's the difference between, you know, doing this to a child. Um, so the question Drizzen asks is, what is the significance of clip 17 and 18? And the answer is, he said, Dr. Richard Leo says, I think this is the place where you see the most concentrated and implied, if explicit promises of help and suggestions, if not promises of lenience. The clip in 17, they're suggesting that being honest, which means telling them what they regard as honest or the truth, will help him will allow them to work through it, that they will stand behind him, and he'll get a better deal if he's honest. And if he's honest, this will be okay. But if he lies, that there will be problems. So it seems to me that what they are suggesting here is that there will be specific negative consequences, general negative consequences if he continues to say things that they don't regard as honest, that that they don't regard as the truth. If he does, he will get help. They will stand behind him. He'll get a better deal. And they'll even say, the truth will set you free. Tell me about that. I mean, the truth will set you free. That's the question. In the context of clip 17, when that comes after the honest person is the one who's going to get a better deal out of everything, how do you interpret the truth will set you free? Or honesty will set you free? Answer: I interpret this as a kind of quid pro quo, as an implied deal. They even use the word deal, right? But the quid quo pro or implied deal or negation here is if you told us honest that we regard as the truth, then you're not going to get caught up in the system. You're not the one who's going hold on, to be blamed. You're not the one who's at fault. The truth will set you free. Suggests that he will be set free if he tells them what they regard as the truth. Question. Well, let's take a step back. There's no yelling here. Answer. Correct. There's no screaming here. Correct. There's no direct threats of harm, is there? Not explicit. If you do this, then this will follow. If you don't, then that will follow. As you might expect in a contract, right? If someone is writing a contract. Question. Why do you think this is psychologically coercive? Answer. Because I think it's conveying an implied promise of, if not leniency, immunity, in exchange for telling them what they regard as the truth or honest. And I think it's in conveying it if he doesn't. And I think we've been playing these clips, but it's important to remember the context as established before these sorts of things are said. And I think the message keeps getting driven home here about this negotiation or deal or quid pro quo. The benefit is if he tells them what they regard as truth or honest, as being honest. And then Fallon, Your Honor, I'm going to renew the objection and ask that the court take this evidence on conditional relevance until it's established that the doctor's suggestions were in fact taken the way he's now testified, then all this is speculation. Well, I don't think, and then the court says, well, I don't think it really goes to the admissibility of evidence. I do think, though, it goes to the weight. So I'm going to overrule your objection. Ha! Sorry, I'm checking chat now. Get caught up in the transcripts and I forget to check chat. So, ha! Suck it, Fallon. Okay. All right, Drizzen. Thank you, Your Honor. Is there anything wrong with linking a statement like, I'll go to bat for you with honesty on Brendan's part? Answer. I think it's creating a statement like this is creating a quid pro quo like deal or expectation. If you say what I want to hear that I regard as honest, what I regard as truthful, then I will help you out. The idea of going to bat for you again, you see, is in seeing this many times in interrogations that I will be your advocate. I will try to negotiate something better for you. The implication is clear in a murder interrogation. Question. Have you ever seen the interrogations when detectives tell a suspect that the truth or honesty will set you free? Answer. Yes. Question. Is that a tactic that interrogators are trained to use with suspects? Answer. I'm not aware that they're trained to use that tactic, no. Question. And how would you describe that tactic? Answer. Well, I would describe that tactic as an inducement in anything other than the context of quoting religious scripture, I would describe that as a systematic or high end inducement. If it creates the expectation that you will go free if you tell them regardless of question. Now, later on in this interrogation, Detective Wiegert tells Brendan that we can't make any promises to you. Answer correct. Question. You remember that? Answer yes. Okay. Doesn't that allay your concern that these interrogations are coercive? No, it doesn't. And you frequently see this. The detectives can talk out of both sides, but then they may, in their minds, actually believe that. But again, this goes back to pragmatic implication and minimalization and communicating in promises. So they may be saying we're not making any explicit promises. They may not be realizing that they're conveying explicitly the same promises or negotiation or deal. Question. Okay, thank you, Dio. I want to play clips 14, 15, 16. And then here's what is being said in the clips. Feel that maybe that maybe there's some I can't pick up what they're saying, or that you would tell us that you may have held back for whatever reasons, and I want to Mark and I are both we're on your side. Clip 15. One of the best ways to prove to us, more importantly, know the court and stuff, is that you tell the whole truth. Don't leave anything out. Don't make anything up because you're trying to cover up some a little, even if those statements are against your own interest. Know what I mean? That it makes you might make you look a little bad. Uh, wrong. Sorry, somebody just texted me. Don't make anything up because you're trying to cover up something. Wait. Let me go back up. One of the best ways to prove to us, more importantly, the court is that you tell the whole truth. Don't leave anything out. Don't make anything up because to cover up something up a little. You're trying to cover something up a little. And even if those statements are against your own interests, know what I mean? That makes it might make you look like a little bad or make you look like you were more involved than you want to be looked at. It's hard to do. But it's good from that to say, hey, they hope to hell you're telling the truth because you're giving the whole story. You're giving points where it don't look really good for you either. 16. As Mark and I looked at the tapes, looked at the notes, it's really obvious there's some places were left out or maybe changed just a little bit to maybe looking at yourself to protect yourself a little. From what I'm seeing, even if I fill those in, I'm thinking you're all right, okay? You don't have to worry about things. We're there for you. And we know Steven did. And we know kind of what happened to you and what he did. We need to hear the whole story from you. As soon as we get that, we're comfortable with that. I think you're going to be a lot more comfortable with that. It's going to be a lot easier on you down the road if this goes to trial and stuff like that. All right. Let me check chat real quick. Hey, Perry, UK True Crime. Londoner. Hello, the Londoner. I remember you. All right. Back to the script. So question by Attorney Drizzen. Dr. Leo, what's this? And they say that both of them, one of them says they're both in his corner, again suggesting they're his advocates. They want to help him in this situation and implying elimination or reduce his culpability. And number 15, the link to the courts, right? The Fassbender talks about how the courts want the whole truth, again implying that there's a benefit at that stage of proceeding for him giving an account that they regard as truthful. And 16, in my opinion, has the most here in terms of inducement. They talk about protecting himself, implying that he'll avoid harm. Okay. They'll also talk about, again, reinforcing the method they're there for him, right? That they're going to be his advocates. But this idea that they're on his side, they also, I think, make more explicit reference in that the prior two ones to the long-term consequences. It'll be easier down the road, suggesting again lesser or no liability or culpability, especially when they link it to if this goes to trial. The image of a trial being where someone might get charged with a crime or avoid getting charged if he's not the one who goes to trial. So again, these are all inducements that convey benefit and help. And they're on his side to help him achieve reduced culpability or liability. Question: do you think that telling a teenager like Brendan that he will be all right even if he implicates himself further in the crime is a tactic that increases the risk of unreliable confession? Yes. Question: why? Because if somebody is being repeatedly accused and pressured to say something, I keep saying no, 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 and then they're told that that's not the truth and they're not being honest. And so the truth and honesty become code words for what the interrogator wants to hear. And then they are told there's no consequence for you telling us what we want to hear, especially in the context of something as serious as a murder interrogation. And the incitive, after a while, can be easily become, I'll tell them what they want to hear. They'll stop badgering me or accusing me. There's no consequence. I'm not liable for any criminal activity. Question: in clip 16, interrogators Fassbender says, from what I'm seeing, even if I fill in those and refers to some blanks, I'm thinking you're all right. You don't have to worry about things. Do you see that? Answer: yes. In the statement context of the clip 16. Answer: yes. Question: what is the problematic of anything about that? The idea that you'll be all right, that you don't have to worry about anything. I think kind of reasonability through any reasonable interpretation, it conveys that you are not going to be, or you may not be, criminally charged for this. You're going to be okay, suggests you're out of it. And you don't need to worry about it. Suggests you don't need to worry about being charged or prosecuted or convicted. Question: okay, I'd like to play clips 33, 35, and 36. These are on page 5. All sorts of pain. So then they start playing it. Honestly, this is what they're saying in the clips. Honestly, here, this is the thing that's going to help you, okay? No matter what you did, you can work through that, okay? We can't make any promises, but and then this is the clip 33, Alex. I have a question. Sure. How long is this gonna take? It shouldn't take a whole lot longer. Do you think I can Oh, okay. So this is the clip. I have a question. This must be Brendan. And they say, sure. How long is this going to take? It shouldn't take a whole lot longer. Do you think I can get for 129? Probably not. Well, what's at 129? Well, I had a project due in 6 hours. So that was when he asked him into the interrogation. When he's going to be going back to school, which we all know by that point he went back to school. But it didn't to Brendan yet that he wasn't going back. So Um, Clip 35. Okay. Am I going to be at school before school ends? Probably not. We're at 2:30 already. School's over at what, 3, 3? What time will this be done? Brendan asks. Well, we're pretty much done. We have a couple of follow-up things to ask you, but it's pretty much done. Okay. And then then they say, "Do you understand that you're under arrest now?" So, could I call my girlfriend and tell her that? Well, we'll give you an opportunity to do that, okay? Did you, after telling us what you told us, kind of figure this was coming? And then Brendan says, yeah. We don't know that at this time. So I think Brendan asked him a question that they couldn't pick up. All right. So, question by Steve Drizzen. Dr. Leo, Brendan Dassey has just confessed to raping and murdering Teresa Hallback, and he's asking his interrogators if he can go back to school to do a project. What, if any, significance do you attach to this request? And then Fallon, objection, speculation. The court sustained. And then Drizzen re-asked, did you rely on this passage in any way to form any of your in this case? And the answer is yes. I relied on the other passages. Question, how did you rely on this passage? Answer, well, in my opinion, he didn't understand what he was confessing. And then Attorney Fallon, renew the objection. The court, well, I think it's expert opinion. It's his opinion. He can give it. Go ahead. Duh. The witness, in my opinion, he doesn't understand that he confessed to rape and murder or the consequences of that. And then, in my opinion, that's a product of the interrogation techniques that were used to elicit those confessions. And then, question, Dr. Lee, I want to focus on a brief clip that occurs when Brendan Dassey's mother is brought into the room and the invaders, Uyghur and Fassbender, leave the room for the first time. What's happening? Oop. Sorry. All right. So this is the famous clip that we've all seen where Barb comes in and Brendan, I think the weight of what Brendan has said is finally starting to hit him, and the famous clip of they got to my head, but this is basically what I think this is what Barb's saying. You're going to juvie, that's where you're going, to juvie jail, about 40 minutes away. And then Brendan says, what happens if he says, like, his story's different, but he says he admits to doing it? And then she says, what do you mean? Like, if he says it's different, like, I never did nothing or something. And then she says, huh? Then he says, not really. And then she says, what do you mean, not really? And then he says, they got to my head. They got into my. And then she says, huh? And then he says, I didn't say any. And then she says, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Brendan? And then, so Steve Drizzen, question, significance do you attach to Brendan's statements in this clip, Dr. Leo? And then as well, he's saying that he's really involved in that. And when pressed about that, they got to my head suggests to me that they influenced him and how they interrogated him. Got to my head makes it sound like he was manipulated and not really makes it sound like he's denied what he did, that he did this. Does the fact that Brendan chooses this moment when there are no officers in the room to make these statements have any significance? Answer, yes. In that it once removed from the pressure of the interrogators and intended question. Do you see other cases and situations where children recant their statements to their mothers when left alone with their answer? Yes. Question. When Brendan is asked to explain this to his mother, what he meant by those words, "Not really," he tells his mother, "Got to my head." Okay, in your experience, do suspects often have a difficult time explaining the reasons why they confess falsely to crimes? Answer: Yes, some suspects question. And what is it based on? Answer: Well, it's based on my observations of case in which they have been asked after the fact, and interviews by me or others or relative or a guardian or friend comes in and they talk to them and they're being recorded and they ask what they said and why they said it. Now, Dr. Leo, based on meaning and your experience, your research, your studies, and police interrogations and psychological coercion, do you have an opinion as to what techniques that we've shown you here today used by the officers in this case on February 27th and March 1st were psychologically coercive? Answer: Yes. It is my opinion that they were for the reasons that I have stated. Okay, before we turn the question of reliability statements, Dr. Leo, did you view a videotape script of conversations between Mr. O'Kelly and Brendan on May 12th? And he said, I did. Okay, without showing you this entire conversation, would you call this an interview or an interrogation? So May 12th, I believe, is when O'Kelly has Brendan in that classroom. If you guys remember, we did, I believe ODOG, yes, it was ODOG that was able to FOIA that. We did a open panel discussion, a couple of episodes of that, where we watched it and then we discussed, it. So, it's on this channel. So if you guys want to check it out, it's pretty upsetting to watch too. It's interesting because it's the first time because you see clips of it in the documentary, you see its whole entirety, and it's very interesting to watch the whole entirety. And I actually they do have the transcript to it too, so you can read the transcript of it too. But that's what, yeah. Um, So this is actually an interesting question Steve Drizzen has asked. Without showing the entire conversation, would you call this an interview or an interrogation? And then, of course, Fallon, objection, relevance, and materially in its relationship, if at all, to a statement that occurs 6 weeks before. And Drizzen says it is. I'm sorry. Court says go ahead. It is our possession, as we've made clear over and over again, that this is a direct relevance to the voluntariness and the reliability of statements that Brendan following that May 12th interview, including the telephone conversations of May 13th. And Your Honor was deprived of seeing the Michael O'Kelly video when you ruled on voluntariness of those statements. And Dr. Leo should be entitled to weigh in or not those statements were the product of O'Kelly's interrogation. The court will overrule the objection. Okay, so the question is, and then he says, actually, may I have a moment? And then so they do a different, having block about that number. Okay, so then he says, did you answer my last question? Did you believe that the questioning of Brendan Dassey on 5/12, May 12th, Michael Kelly was an interview or an interrogation? And here's the answer I've been waiting for. He says interrogation. Okay. Which is cool. Not cool that he was interrogated. It's cool that he recognizes that what O'Kelly did to Brendan would be, in his professional opinion, be considered an interrogation and not an interview. So if he's interrogated by somebody that wasn't even a detective, investigator, his lawyer wasn't there. O'Kelly's not a lawyer. O'Kelly was the supposedly hired to do the lie detector test. So why do you have the guy that you hired to do the lie detector test then come in and interrogate your client? Yeah. That's excuse my language, but that's pretty fucked up. Anyway, Drizzen, Alex, if you would, play the clip 2. Alex is the one who's been playing all these clips. I just haven't been saying his name. Fallon, Your Honor, I'm going to renew the objection because they are attempting to tie all of this into a 10-second, 15-second clip played on examination after the defendant had taken the stand and waived his rights. And the interesting thing here is that the phone call with his mother, it was not in response to the police interrogation or questioning or comments, which is bullshit. We all know that. Um, there's no state action there as it relates to his conversation with his mother on the suggestion that, well, if you're going to plead guilty, you better tell her that you're going to do that. That was the context as the court recalls the trial. So this is all a charade. And this, as it were, to tie in all this irrelevant immaterial evidence to something that did not have a state action attached to it. I can just see him stomping his foot. It's a charade. Which is stupid. Okay, so he says right up here, there's no state action there as it relates to his conversation with his mother on the suggestion that, well, if you're going to be guilty, you better tell her that you're going to do it. So if they tell him, you better call your mom and tell her something, and that was said to him by what is this, O'Kelly's conversation? I mean, O'Kelly was working for the state, was he not? I don't know. The court. Yeah, I'm getting very skeptical here, Mr. Drizzen. This seems to be pushing it beyond the grounds of any relevance that I can see. I'm going to sustain counsel's objection at this point. Ah. And then he says, "Okay." At the and then okay, question by Drizzen. At the beginning of the interview, Dr. Leo, without playing the tape, Mr. O'Kelly tells Brendan that he failed the polygraph and that the results were a score 8% deception indicated. Do you remember that? And the answer is yes. Okay, now in your have you seen cases in which confronting a suspect with polygraph results leads a suspect to falsely confess? Yes. And yours, then they object again. Relevance. Mr. O'Kelly was not an agent of this. Well, he was hired by somebody who was working for the state. Sure. I have my opinions about that. So this is off. This is not in the script at all. But like, whose side was Len Jensen? He was clear on Brendan's side, and hey, Gloria. So he was clearly not on Brendan's side, and he was being paid as a state prosecutor, or he was being paid. What's it called? A defendant. I can't word right now. He was getting checks from the state. Yes, he was supposed to defend the defendant. He was the defense, but he's being paid by the state. He's also up for he was trying to be elected as a judge at the time. Like this was something that he took on because he really thought this was going to help his career. Obviously he was in communications with the state. He was taking cues from the state. So really, can we argue that he was, on the state side of things? He clearly was wasn't on Brendan's side. He hired O'Kelly. Right. So he wasn't in helping Brendan. Obviously, O'Kelly's interest was in convicting Brendan. Same way, so that's what obviously, that's something you can't probably say in court because it makes you sound crazy, I'm sure, but, like, that's just my personal opinion. Mr. O'Kelly was not an agent of the I think so was, obviously, Len Kaczynski in some ways was, and he was working with them. But anyway. And, Drizzen says, "It doesn't matter, Your Honor. We are, it's our" and then Fallon says, "There's no evidence." The court, "Here, one at a time." Drizzen says, "It doesn't matter what he was an agent. The state knew about this interview. They knew it was happening." See? That's true. The state, Len Kaczynski set up this interview, and they knew that it was gonna take place. And Len Kaczynski was trying to get Brendan to take the plea deal on behalf of the state. Yeah. They knew that it resulted in a second interview the next day. That's what he said. Mr. Kaczynski testified earlier today that it was his understanding that the deal with the state was that anything that came out weekend was pursuant to a pro offer, therefore not going to be used against Mr. Dassey at trial. The state specifically took advantage of Mr. Kaczynski's absence by getting him to make phone calls that were then used against him. Now, counsel can talk about the fact that it was only used on impeachment, Brendan Dassey. But the fact of the matter, it wasn't mentioned in impeachment of Mr. Dassey, impeachment of Mr. Gordon, and also referenced in closing argument. That means that it was more prejudicial that the counsel would like to say it is. I think Mr. Leo's entitled to talk about the tactics that were used that led to those statements. I don't know how they got away with it either, Gloria. Court, I don't know that your has a whole lot to do with why you're asking Dr. Leo that question. I'm going to sustain the state's objection. And then question by by Drizzen, Dr. Leo, what is a prop room? Oh, sorry, it's just the way it's set up here, it kinda, like alright. I laugh at weird things, don't judge. Answer, a prop room is a room that sometimes interrogators will take suspects that has artifacts of the crime, sometimes newspaper articles or folders of the particular that the person's being interrogated about. Question, and is this use of such props typically associated with interrogations? Answer, yes. Question, as opposed to use? Question, yes. Or answer, yes. Question, in your experience analyzing thousands of interrogations, have you ever seen a video of a defense investigator interrogating his own suspect, his own client? Answer, I can't think of one off the top of my head. In your experience analyzing thousands of interrogations, have you ever seen a video of a defense investigator interrogating his own client? I can't think of any off the top of my head. Drizzen, Your Honor, if it's okay, can we take a break as we go to reliability? Any objection? No. Take 10 minutes. Okay, how much longer do we have on this? Let me see. I'm on page 197 out of 291. So I have like what, 100 pages more to go through? Less than 100. This is very interesting. I have an appointment I need to leave here for, though, in a little bit. So I might just wrap it up right here because I actually have to start ready. I have to leave Payson. So I'm on page, I'm gonna mark it right here. I'm on page 197. I'm gonna say in the chat right here, page 197. So this was interesting. This is a lot of things that he brought up that I've all been saying, obviously. Brendan was coerced. He was interrogated multiple times. Interrogators tried to get around what's considered interrogation the first couple of times. Was severely psychologically, I would say severely psychologically manipulated into confessing to horrific crimes that normally a person would not want to admit to, but because of the language that they used and how they did it, leading up to that March 1st interview, was pretty obvious that that's what they did. And to me, even sitting here reading the transcripts of this 2010 interview, um, to me, it kind of just sounds like um, I don't understand how the courts didn't. I don't get why the courts didn't say like this was pretty messed up. What happened to Brendan, legally, even if you believe that he could have committed the crime, everything that led up to this would have been grounds for at least a retrial. Um, this was just absolutely despicable from beginning to the end of what happened here. Legally, even. Just the fact that the way he was interrogated, the way that they, treated him after he was arrested, basically. Oh, Kelly's role in all of this? Ridiculous. The fact that the state allowed this to happen to a child, much less anybody, it shouldn't have happened to anybody, but a child, it's just and the fact that it in this trial, the judge the court didn't see anything wrong with any of this. This is just ridiculous to me. I guess this is why it's important to pay attention to what you see in the news and your own court systems here in your own local area. And if you see stuff like this, vote them out. I don't know if you can vote out a judge actually or what, but there has to be something that can be done. It's got to be something, right? Because this is just absolutely ridiculous. As a citizen, if you live in Wisconsin, as a citizen of Wisconsin, I don't know why more people aren't outraged by this. Absolutely awful. But see, there's not a lot of people in chat talking, so I'm probably just gonna end that. And I tried to upload a video and it just isn't doing it. So I'm probably just not gonna worry about it. I need to look at a new internet provider of some sorts. Um, hey, no problem, Gloria. I'm glad that you stopped by. I'm glad that you stopped by. Emily, Perry, the UK True Crime, Donna. Thank you, everybody. And like I said, please check out Jinx's the link that she put in for that's the interrogation video. Maybe next live I do on this, I will play back those clips on them and I'll play them back for you guys because they are rather profound. Out of the it's a 5 like Jinx said, full 5-hour video. 5-hour video of interrogation of poor Brendan sitting there and being interrogated. And yeah. These clips that he's talking about are pretty profound. We've all probably seen them. I believe some of them were even in the documentary. They were used in many different forms of media. But yeah. So thank you everybody for stopping by, and please email me if you guys would like any postcards. Oop, what happened? Of Stephen and Brendan postcards. Stephen, Avery, and Brendan postcards. I just mailed off a bunch of Stephen postcards. I'm going to be mailing off a bunch of postcards here in the next few days. So keep an eye out. If I have your address, keep an eye out for that. But here's the emails. If you live in the UK, please email ukpostcardsforbrendan@gmail.com. If you live anywhere else in America or anywhere else, please email me at talks89@gmail.com and need your address and I'll mail those off to you. And the postcards are meant to be mailed to Governor Evers or whomever. No judges. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great weekend and stay safe out there. And I'll see you guys hopefully next Saturday. I'll be going live again and finishing this up next Saturday. So let's end it on a clip. How about this clip?
Michael O'Kelly was an investigator that was hired by Len Kaczynski to give Brendan a polygraph exam. But Mr. O'Kelly's role grew and grew in ways that, to me, highlight how Mr. Kaczynski was not interested in what Brendan had to say. He was only interested in getting Brendan to plead guilty so Brendan could be an asset for the prosecution against his uncle.
The third paragraph. Brendan needs to be alone. When he sees me this Friday, I will be a source of relief. He needs to trust me in the direction that I steer him into. We need to separate him from fantasy and bring him to see reality from our perspective.
Was all of this done pursuant to instructions from Mr. Kaczynski?
Oh, sure, yes.
From the first shot where you see this table where he had this picture of Teresa Halbach and the church and the ribbon, what a production, my God. The extent and the level to which he went to coerce this confession. It was just amazing. You know, it's everything that you talk about, all the methods to get an unreliable confession. It's clearly where his heart was.
We saw things that I think have never been seen before in a court of law. I can't think of another case where a defense attorney and his investigator plotted to pressure their client to plead guilty to a case that in which he was expressing his innocence.
That tape was somewhat disturbing, I think.
It was extraordinarily disturbing, and Michael O'Kelly is a seasoned investigator, and I believe what he did to Brendan Dassey traumatized him.
first question you have to ask yourself is, you're going to spend the rest